Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, the compassionate and merciful, I testify that there is no deity to worship except Allah, and that Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace and prayers be to him, is his slave, servant, and messenger. And I ask for Allah's refuge from the evils of myself. I seek his refuge from the rejected shaitan, from the evil of our deeds, from the evil of ourselves, from disbelief, poverty, from deceiving and being deceived, misleading and being misled, and from oppressing and being oppressed. There is no deity to worship except this deity. Never has been and never will be. And I testify that God is one by himself, with no partners and no equals, and nothing created compares to him. That said, let me get to the point. As a Muslim, yes, I am concerned about black issues. Black folks have been forced into special situations requiring special solutions at times, and the Muslim world is not an exception to this. Now, the rules are fair, I can say that. And a lot of times the rules are applied fairly when it comes to things of a formal nature like the government. But I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that the hearts of people are always different. They differ a little bit from place to place, but the hearts of people are not magically and supernaturally changed and purified because you change location. So I'm going to point this out. In the black community in the U.S. Specifically, there is a type of hypocrisy that's got to be called out, and it is a hypocrisy on the part of black women. I've gone hard on black men and black women before, so I'm not doing this to women bash, and I'm not going to start just woman bashing later on, especially not just for the fun of it. When we men are wrong, we're wrong. This is a case wherein the men are not wrong as a whole, collectively. They're individuals of both genders that are right and wrong, but collectively is what I'm talking about. In other words, I'm talking about the rule. I'm not talking about the exceptions that you want to bring up to try to tell me to not talk about the rule. I'm talking about the rule, while admitting exceptions exist. This rule, this generalization, this pattern I'm talking about is that black women are mad about black men swirling, and yet black women are forgiving of black women for swirling. And I'm telling you that's BS. End of story. If swirling is wrong when black men do it, it's wrong when black women do it. This is something that a lot of black women are going to have to come to grips with. It is not wrong that Omar Hardwick is married to a white woman, or that Michael Coulter is married to a white woman, but it's okay that Meghan Markle married that racist rat bastard she married. I don't care about his throne and his money. And it's not okay that Serena Williams married a white dude that has a ninth to a tenth of her wealth, even if they are both millionaires. It doesn't change because one's a black woman. And I'm going to tell you why. When black women say certain things about what black men don't do for the community, there are times when it's true and there are times when it's not. It varies from community to community, because the black community is comprised of black communities in different areas. Every city is actually. We are a black community in the city in which I came from. But my neighborhood, which is just south of one of the busiest interstates in the country, is right across the interstate and then across a busy street from another black community that is not as well off. And things that are okay to do in my community are not okay to do in that community. Now, if you continue down the interstate, 4 more exits, and then you exit, that's another community. It surrounds one of the best middle magnet schools in the city, but it still surrounds it. That's another community. It is not okay to do certain things there. So these are different black communities that together, if they have to, will comprise one community. So you may be able to harass a woman in one neighborhood and no one stops you. And then you harass a woman in another neighborhood and they come and beat the snot out you. But the point I'm getting at here is that it is not okay for black women to point at black men for things they may not do for the community, especially considering that neither one of us has any real power in the U.S. or in the Americas for that matter. Considering that that is the case, neither one of us has any real power. Let me remind us that what have white men done for the black community before we start allowing swirling for black women? What's really going on is hypocrisy. And I'll explain what the hypocrisy is about. The reason, and I know for a fact that this does happen because a lot of black women that do this don't realize they're doing it. It's not always conscious. It is still wrong and hypocritical though. Now the reason that this is being done is money. You see, last year there was an African American woman I work with here in this country I'm now working in, and she asked me my opinions about Me Too and Bill Cosby, and this was a year ago this month. So to be honest, I didn't know a whole lot at that point. I just knew these things existed. I knew there was a Me Too hashtag and Cosby was facing accusations, and that's all I knew. But before I can answer and tell I don't know much, a self-identified white Latina that I didn't really know well started answering for her, just ripping up heterosexual men. Just men that like women, ripping them up. The same woman that ripped up heterosexual men in this country we're in, which is very conservative, was buying her own plane tickets to fly to Jeddah to visit a man who was a citizen of this country, who could not do things to her. He could not do things to citizens of this country he was doing to her. Oh yeah, they were screwing. And he was probably thinking, not only am I finally getting some relief before I even get married, but she's paying her own plane tickets to come out and see me. That's what was going on. So what I'm saying was I saw hypocrisy from this self-identified white Latina ripping men up, talking about how useless men are. A few months later, she asked me if I was busy. I asked why. She said, can you come with me to the store, which was right next door. I said, okay, I'm listening. What's going on? Oh, it's nothing. I just needed somebody to come with me to the store. Oh, okay, why? Well, there's this taxi driver that I was his customer once. Ever since then, he's been harassing me. He calls, sends me messages. He was waiting outside one day when I came. Hey, where you going? Let me give you a lift. I said, oh, so because one man is useless, another man's not useless. I get it now. That's what you need. I was surprised. I thought maybe she thought I was creepy, that she wouldn't trust me. But no, she trusted me. She just didn't trust this other guy, and for good reason. Well, I saw it from her. I also saw it from the African American lady that asked me the question. 3 days later, she asked me why the men aren't approaching the women in this compound in which we're living. I told her, you answered your own question a few days ago when you vilified men that make approaches. You're asking why is it that the men these women won't go and make approaches? Well, how's a man supposed to know if a woman wants him or not? Making an approach is wrong if she doesn't want him. How's he going to find out? The safest thing is to not make the approach. That's it. End of story. The same African American woman later told me that black folks should never dare date or marry outside of our race, not even with other people of color. No matter how conscious they were and how anti-white supremacist they might be, we shouldn't date and marry them. Okay, fine. Fair enough. What are you going to say to the black folks that other black people don't want, though? Don't go to the Philippines and get married to someone that actually might like you? Is that what you're going to say? Yes. Oh, okay. Guess what I found out? She had an affair with another colleague of ours who was part black, but she didn't know he was part black. So in her own mind, she did exactly what she said that we shouldn't do. Now, I'm only promoting marriage, not dating, but marriage. But going by her own rules, she broke them. Then when Meghan Markle got married, she celebrated the wedding. Oh, yes, royal wedding. You go, girl. What? Oh, what, because he's rich now it's okay? She never said a doggone thing about Serena Williams, good or bad. The thing is, I didn't hear any black women getting on Serena Williams the way they get on Omari Hardwick. And I would agree. Omari Hardwick never said he was pro-black. He should still know better than that. We know two things that don't chase cars. Two things that don't live long with dogs that chase cars and black men that chase white women. That was a common saying during our parents' generation. We know this. Michael Coulter and Omari Hardwick have said that these women were with him when they had nothing. I don't know how true that is. I do know that at the end of the day, if that is the case, these men ain't gonna lead these women. Because real men are trained and socialized from a young age to not leave people that were loyal to them if they consider themselves to be real men. They are socialized to understand that that is a low down and unmanly thing to do. There are men that will do it, but they don't consider themselves to be real men deep down because of that. That's how they're trained and socialized. Now, if these women were with them when they had nothing, and black women are saying, we don't need to be with no man that ain't got nothing, then why would they leave these women for black women? And I'm saying this as a man who does not support black and white marriages and dating. Now, I'm kind of neutral when it's another person of color, depending on what the background is and their stance and how woke and conscious they are. I'm still guarded, but I try to be fair and assess it based on the individual case. Should we marry people from India? Hell no. They're not woke enough yet. They're getting there, but not enough yet. Should we marry people from Pakistan? Absolutely not. No. Their society's worse than India's when it comes to black folks and dark skin. Afghans? Absolutely not. No. No, we should be at war with Afghanistan. We should actually be trying to get the Afghans and the whites to kill each other, to be honest, because both of them hate us. That's real. So it will really depend. Cambodia, hey, you know what? They're the one nationality in Southeast Asia that does not use skin bleach. They don't have a problem with black people. How am I going to knock that? I don't have a leg to stand on to knock something like that. But what black women are really saying, and this is going to be harsh. Sorry, sisters, but I've been harsh on brothers. I can't let either one of us off the hook when it's time to. What black women are really saying is we have insecurities about our beauty and our looks because we were forced to. We were brainwashed to. I get that, understandably. So you, black man, don't you go stepping out on us with other women because we've been told that all of them are better looking than us and more beautiful and more charming. So don't go and confirm these inferiority complexes we have and the insecurities we have by stepping out on us. But we're going to step out on you. Not only are we going to step out on you and it's okay, but we're going to step out on you with not other men of color, but specifically white men, the one that are responsible for you not having any money. We're going to go and step out on you with the one who has your share and my share of the money because he has the money. We're going with him since he's got the money. He's the one in control. And it's okay for us to obey the hypergamous instinct even at your expense. That's fine. We can do that. But don't you dare go and step out with somebody else. Or we're going to say that you're suffering from self-hatred, which I would agree with sometimes. But what's really going on is just that. What sisters are telling us without realizing they're doing it is it is okay for us to marry someone who has something and to run away from men who don't have anything. You don't have that right to complain that we're marrying someone who's got more than you, even if we're marrying the one who robbed you and me and that's why he has it. But you don't have the right to step out on us and go even with another woman of color that did not have anything to do with this, that was not in on the heist. You still don't have that right because we feel insecure. This is not fair. We cannot afford this. And I'm saying this as a man who loves black women and who marries only black women. I'm saying this as a man who is so trained that my equipment will not respond to the presence of a woman that's not black. It won't move. I'm saying this as a man who is loyal when it comes to my marriage and mating preferences and selection, black and black only. I've only once even held hands with a woman that was lighter skinned than me. And ironically, she actually treated me the best. However, when she requested a divorce for personal and legal reasons pertaining to her own country, she was not American. I went ahead and granted it. And I said, okay, no hatred, but good riddance. I still said that. But I can't sit up here and tell you, sisters, that every single black man should be willing to face only the choices that you're willing to give them. No. Black men are going to have less money. Now, if they're responsible but they don't have as much money, I don't have a leg to stand on to condemn these men. Whose fault is it that they have less money in life if they're actually responsible and not blowing it on stupid stuff? White folks. That's it. The white man and the white woman. Mostly the white man. That's whose fault it is. It's always been that way. That's what white supremacy is. You can't say that white supremacy is responsible for you feeling an inferiority complex, causing you to maybe bleach sometimes and put on weaves and wigs and stuff like that, and then say that it doesn't exist against black men in the job market. A study proved that in the job market, black men are the last hired and first fired, then the black woman. A study proved that this was the case with one exception, which is the black gay man who faces no job discrimination, even less than that of a white gay man. A study proved this, showed this. That's war. You don't get to sit up and say that there's no white supremacy, but there's white supremacy. And I've gotten on brothers for all kinds of stuff before, so don't say that I'm just sitting up here hating on black women. That's not the case. The same African American women about whom I told you, the same African American woman, singular, about whom I told you just now, the one that said nope, no swirling, none of that stuff, but she had her little somewhat black boyfriend about whose black blood she was unaware, and was going all the way with this dude with olive oil. Oh yeah, he poured it on her. Yeah, they got busy. She said it herself. Well, see, what I'm getting at, people, is that the same lady, the exact same one, once asked me why I would even ask her the questions I asked her. So I said to her, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell you what happened to me and some other guys I know. Not even just me. I know more about what happened to myself, but I'm going to tell you what I know about what happened to other guys too. Because in the 1990s, starting in 1990, as a matter of fact, we began to be told that I don't want no light-skinned men. I ain't got time for y'all. Y'all are too much of a headache. That's what we started to hear. So I'm going to write it out for you so you can read it at your leisure. Then you can understand why I'm asking the question. It ain't because I want us going around with white folks. No, they're the ones responsible for this goddamn problem. But because other people of color are so different even from each other, they can have different attitudes towards us. So just to be fair, I had to ask you the question. So I wrote her this long document because she's a writer. She appreciates reading and writing. So I did this for her to entertain her while educating her. And I told her what I had seen men go through. I told her about how both dark-skinned and light-skinned men got stereotyped negatively. One for being hyper-masculine, almost unrealistically masculine. I shouldn't even say masculine, but just macho to an unrealistic standard. And how the other one was stereotyped as being effeminate and soft and weak. And how this led to both of us actually being objectified. One for the penis and the other one for the coins. That's real. And how this was something we were facing from black women when we were young, back in middle school and in high school. And how we were all subjected to this brainwashing. I wrote this out for her, and I wrote it with no hatred towards anybody. I wrote it to tell her, simply to explain to her that there were going to be some black people, men and women alike, that other black folks didn't want because of stereotypes we had come to believe about ourselves, and who therefore may have to go to other people of color that don't have these issues and see if they're attractive enough or not. As I can tell you now, Southeast Asian women, they don't hate me. I'm not really sure, but they don't. I'm not sure how much they like me. It seems to go back and forth, but they don't hate me. There's no hatred there. African American women, I've seen both. I've seen an unreasonable hatred at times, and I've seen a little bit more staring, so to speak. But I've never been shown the same affection that they show towards other black men. That didn't happen. Not for the same price, not for the same effort. And I only dated us. This means that every time I dated one of us, I had to accept less in exchange for doing more. I had to accept this every time. And I didn't find out until until maybe a year and a half ago that this was always the case. And I wrote these things out and told her what I had to deal with, what my colleagues had to deal with, the negative stereotypes. And let me tell you something. A week later, when I was sitting on the steps of our building and she came back from a store, she stopped and looked at me. She just stopped and she stopped walking and looked and said, "I think you hate black women." I had one question for her. My question was, "Sister, did you read the whole thing?" "No, I'm still reading." "Then finish it and tell me what you think after that. You got to read the whole thing. That's why I wrote the whole thing. You can't read half of it and then start forming conclusions. I don't do that to you when you talk or when you write." Then she said, fair enough. I'll go back and read it. Later on, when a bunch of us went to dinner together, she realized that I did not have any hatred for black women. I was lamenting the brainwashing to which both of us have been subjected. And I never told her that I knew that she had swirled. I never let this be known. But I later on began to realize that this same phenomenon was occurring with other sisters too. When a black woman gets a white dude, especially if he got some money, fine. But when a black man gets a white woman because she was with him when he ain't got no money, what the hell are you doing? And I'm one of them who wouldn't even let a white woman get that close to me when I had or didn't have anything. I still have to say, why is it that you're doing or holding a standard that doesn't even make sense? The hell were you thinking? You got black men like me who are loyal and they're ticked off at what they're saying and have every right to be. Just like you got black women who are loyal to black men, but they're sick of some of the stuff they're seeing. At the end of the day, I'm going to say this though, because I do believe in being fair to both genders. And there's a time to be hard on both of them. I'm going to say this. When it comes to the whole gender relationship, women still have more power than men. You can argue that if you want to. Men are limited to who doesn't reject them. Women are limited to all that approach them. Which one is more limited? Because see, that's what it really comes down to. So women actually are the gatekeepers in this respect. And when it comes down to this, they're the gatekeepers. If black women decide that they don't want any more light-skinned babies, our whole race will be darker the next generation. That's real. The only exceptions would be those who simply inherited a more recessive browner shade from both parents that were carriers, whether they displayed it or not. That would be the only exception. And if that preference continued on further into the next generation, then in 2 generations, we would all look like we were from Gambia and Senegal, and that would be it. That's all there is to it. Nothing else. It is black women that get to determine this. It ain't black men. Black men don't get to decide what the next generation is going to be like, look like. They don't get to determine anything genetic about the next generation. We can only determine who we might have some say-so and who we're not going to be with. That's it. That's control, but it's limited. So because women have more control, there is more responsibility on them for the choices that they make in men. That's real. Now, if you were a lady that did not realize this before, I'm not going to sit up here and point fingers at you, but if you were one who knew this before and you still spouted feminist stuff and blame men for things, then you're a hypocrite. End of story. And none of us gets to be hypocrite, man or woman. None of us gets to be hypocritical about a damn thing. There are, in fact, many black women who aren't even aware they're doing this, but they're doing it. They are castigating black men, not just for marrying white women, but for marrying anyone that's not black, like they did with Phil. I don't know what Phil said about his wife at first from the Advised show. I'm not sure. But you look at his scenario. His wife is not white. She's Mexican. She's light-skinned in a particular photograph. But honestly, I think the photograph was lightened overall so that you could see him with her, to tell the truth of the matter. I think the flash was what made her look paler, and then the photograph was lightened. Honestly, I think that's what happened, only because I take a lot of photographs. So that's the reason why I'm suspecting this. But the point is, he did marry a white woman. No one said she was white. She didn't say she was white. And what did black women start saying? And the Hotep niggas that simp for them. I'm not talking about black conscious men in general. I'm talking about the ones that outright they only say things against men and they never hold women to any sort of standard. I'm talking about these guys. What did they say? They said she was white, and she's not. She may not be African, Latin American, but she ain't white. They said she was white, and therefore he was swirling with the enemy, and therefore you can't take anything he said. That was not fair to him. He never said his wife was African American. I don't know if he said she was Afro-Latina or just Latina. I'm not sure what he said, but he never said she was African American. He said that he was married to a woman from another culture and another country. He did say that. Then they got the DNA test done, and she's mostly Native American. That's not marrying a white woman. You can debate about how black conscious she is, but she ain't the one on the show. She ain't the one out there broadcasting stuff. He is. So if you're going to say anything about Phil from The Advice Show, or Omar Hardwick, or Michael Coulter. And especially if you're going to say anything about Phil from The Advice Show, just Phil from The Advice Show, just him, because his wife ain't even white, you better go in on Serena Williams. And you better go in on Meghan Markle. You better dig them out. You should be like, no, you're not even part of the community anymore. You better really, why? Very simple. Meghan Markle married a man that wore a Nazi costume to a party before. Was known for saying some racist stuff previously. She still married him and ain't nobody said a doggone thing about it. I've had women tell other women not to even consider me because my family might be racist against black people and we're black. This is before I became Muslim. If you're going to dig into Phil, you're going to dig into Wesley Snipes because he married a woman that just, what black women are really saying about black men when they swirl is, if you don't marry the darkest with the widest nose and the biggest lips and the nappiest hair, you suffer from self-hatred issues. Even though we have a variety of nappiness and a variety of wideness of nose and bigness of lips. Yeah, I just made up the word bigness. Even though we have a variety of complexions within the African continent itself with no help from Europeans. Look at South Africa. They ain't mixed in South Africa. There's a mixed community. But everybody light skin ain't mixed. You see some people, they're just light brown. Nose as wide as the Atlantic Ocean. Big lips could turn their head twice to kiss a classroom in one movement of the head. And they're just very light skinned. So what sisters are really saying is we have the right, black men, to castigate you if you don't marry only the darkest with the nappiest hair and the widest nose and the biggest lips, even though there aren't enough women like that to marry all of us. I mean, numerically speaking, that doesn't exist. Women, what sisters are telling us is that. But if we go for not just other men of color, but specifically the white man who was responsible for us not having a goddamn thing in Africa or outside of it, you can't say anything. That's what they're saying to us. We will marry and date the man that robbed you and me because now he has the money. We can follow the money, that's okay. But you, goddammit, better not even go with women that might want you or value you more than we do. This is not acceptable. What I'm saying for black people to do is for both of us to start, first off, not accepting marriage with white folk. It's no, I mean, unless you're one of the white folks that all of the white people consider to be a race traitor, then don't come looking to marry us. We don't want to talk all this kumbaya stuff. You deserve to give us all your money. That's what we deserve, the wealth of America and none of its responsibilities. Same for Brazil and Colombia and Venezuela and Argentina. Yes, we deserve the wealth without the work because we've done the work without the wealth. So, if you're not bringing that to us and betraying your own people and impoverishing them for our benefit, we ain't trying to talk marriage with you, even if you are a nice person. First off, we need to do that. Both of our genders. Get on code. You don't go run to the person that robbed you or benefited from the robber, knowing the robber was a robber that robbed you. We need to get on code. That means you don't run to that white man because he's the robber. You don't run to that white woman because she was in on the heist and knew about it. Then we start looking at every other ethnicity of color and saying, what is your stance on the darkest of us with the widest nose and the biggest lips and the nappiest hair? What is your stance on those members of us? And that determines whether or not you actually view us as equals. Like I said, those members of us may not be enough in number to marry everybody. I get it. But what their stance is, their willingness to treat them as equals, is going to be our litmus test for whether or not these groups of people are allies and intermarriage is even expedient or not. Do you think that in Pakistan they're going to pass that litmus test? I'm telling you they won't. They're worse than the Arabs in that regard. The Arabs are 22 nationalities and they're different from each other. Pakistan is a one nationality and their culture is pro-white, anti-black, end of story. That's it. In India, they're at least beginning to question and they're still too far gone. So many other people of color, it's true, they would not be allies and are not fit to marry us. That is very true. But we would have to assess it based on that. Do you think Polynesians are running around hating black people? I've never heard of such a thing. If there is, tell me, but I haven't heard of such. So there's no reason to go around saying to them, look, you know what, absolutely, you better not ever marry a black person or we'll shoot you because you don't mean us any good. There's no reason to say that. The point I'm making is that we would have to make these determinations based on their alliances with us. And then if there are any black folks that other black people just would refuse to marry for whatever reason, we can't say a damn thing if they marry someone that is not out to hurt us. It just wouldn't make sense. Going for the enemy, yeah, that's a problem. Going for someone that's not an enemy, no. We don't have a reason to go after them. We need to get on code with that. I hope this message has been a benefit. Thank you for your patience. Assalamu alaikum.